So let's write ourselves a timer decorator. I'm going to use this for a ton of stuff. So my intention is to save this thing um, and maybe make a little like mini library of decorators that I like because hell, these things are handy. So in order to make a timer decorator, I have gone out, I watched a couple YouTube videos. I did this decorator thing yesterday, so I'm pretty sure I remember how that shit works. If I wasn't sure, I'd have a decorator example open, or I'd copy and paste one in here to start from. Don't be afraid to do that. I'm pretty sure I remember how it goes, so I'm going to try it. It should be maybe philosophically. It is probably harder to start without one, but it's maybe more philosophically useful for learning because I don't want to have to look up how a decorator works every time. I just want to remember how it goes. So I'm pretty sure I remember. I'll muddle through it. I did a little Googling. So I came up with there's a time library, and I looked up this. I found this Stack Overflow article from a bunch of years ago about how to measure elapsed time. And then I just looked at the answer, and it said import time. That made me think there was a time library. I kind of looked at this, and I was like, all right, that seems legit. But let me go look at the timer library. So I go look at the timer library. And there's a time.time function. And then also while I was going through this, I noticed that there's a time.sleep function. So I'm going to use that too. I'm just going to use that to check that it's working because that'll give me a function that I know how long it took. That way I don't have to like sit here and count to check and see that it's working. So I'm going to start with those two things. I'm going to say from time import time and sleep. Okay, and then I'm going to try to make my decorator. Maybe I should make my, I'm going to make a test function too. So I'm going to go down a little ways and make a test function first. So I'm going to call that thing test function. I'm keeping in line with my PEP8 rules, right? It's lowercase underscore separated function name. Maybe I should confirm that. Let me confirm that. PEP8. And I'm in a descriptive naming style, and I'm looking for function names. Function name should be lowercase, words separated by underscores. Cool, check. Rockstar, got it. All right, so I'm going to define my test function, and all my test function is going to do is it's just going to sleep for a few seconds. So I'm going to have it sleep for 3 seconds, just this. So calling that would be weird because I'm not even really sure. It's not going to do anything, right? So I guess I'll just put in a call to it just to make sure I don't have a syntax error right now. Okay, so let me just run this thing, see what I've got going. Oh, I have problems. Problems are going to be, okay, time.time is imported but not used. Okay, that's fair. I'm going to use it. There's too many blank lines. They can bite me for that. I'm going to put shit in those blank lines. And then it expected 2 blank lines after a function definition, which is a good point. So, all right. So it can bite me about the 1 error because I'm going to go ahead and put that in here now. So I want to define my add a timer. So I'm going to call that with timer, right? Because remember when I use this decorator, it's going to be something like before the function, I'm going to do at with timer, right? So with timer seems like a good naming scheme for this because then I can look at the decorator and know, okay, that's just adding a timer. Okay, so remember the way I make a decorator is I need to pass it a function. So I'm just going to pass it a function named function, right? And then we're going to define a function with a timer. Oh, and I guess I should really put in some space here for a doc string. So right now I'm just putting in my, like, I don't know what's going to go in here yet. So I'm defining a function that's going to be my function with a timer. And I know for sure that that should do one thing. It should run the function. Okay? Seems legit, right? Okay, so first things first, let's see. All right, there's a few things I need to take care of that I learned from decorators that I'm not going to worry about right now. There's an arguments thing and a return values thing that I'm going to have to take care of at the end. For right now, I just want to get the timer piece working. So for the timer piece, I need a start time and an end time, and then I'll do the difference, right? Okay, so right when I first call this, right, so before I do the function, I should have a start time. So I'm going to make a variable called start that I'm going to set equal to the time. If you go into the time library and look at what the time function does, it returns in time a time in seconds since the epoch as a floating point number. And then the epoch is when they turned on Unix the first time. So that's been a while. It's January 1, 1970. Oh, that's not since they turned Unix on the first time. Shmeh. It's some time, usually since the system was activated. I don't know what Windows does. Linux does since the first compile of one of the operating systems, but whatevs. Okay, so starts the time, doesn't matter, it's going to be some number in seconds. So the fact that it's a number in seconds means that this is going to be, that this adds a timer to a function in seconds. The in seconds is maybe the important part to put in the doc string there. Okay, so when I start, I record the time, then I call the function, then when we're done, we should calculate the end. So I'm just going to say that the end is time, and then the elapsed time is the difference between those. You could create a variable to store that in if you want. I'm not going to. I'm just going to add that it prints it out. So I'm going to print out a formatted string, and this is going to get a little complicated. So what I want it to say is I want it to do something like tell me which function I called and then how long it took, right? So I'm going to say, I'm going to do something like function dot name with double underscores took good, okay, oops, wrong thing, took end minus start seconds to execute. Okay. And now you'll notice I'm getting up against the size of this window. That's probably going to start kicking, whining about my linter. All right, so if I hit run, I probably have problems. Problems are, here I expected 2 blank lines after an import statement. Okay, good. And then here I have too many blank lines. All right, what else? Okay. Now it's whining that none type object is not callable. And it's not doing the print. So why is it saying a none type object is not callable? Where's that happening? It's happening line 23. It's happening right here. Shit. Hang on. So if I remove the decorator, I just want to check that it works. Okay, so if I remove the decorator, it works. So what's the problem with, why is my decorator broken? See how I defined a function with a timer? Then what? Well, I didn't do anything with it. Remember, I just made this thing, I didn't do anything. So I didn't export it, right? I didn't return it. So I need to return now, right, my function with a timer, and that's returning the idea of a function with a timer, not the function with a timer executed. right? So now if I try this, I should be all right. Oh, and it should be noted that 3 is an uncomfortably long sleep time. So let me try that again. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so test function took 2.00312 seconds to execute. Okay, so seems legit, right? All right. Let me deal with the args, quargs, and returns. So if my function had taken arguments, like the Fibonacci function that I wrote recently that I'm going to use to test this, I need to pass those along. So remember the way you pass arguments along is you say the function with a timer should expect some arguments and possibly some keyword arguments. Because I don't know what it is, right? It might take keyword arguments. I don't know. And we should pass those along. Oops. Great. So all we're doing is we're saying, if stuff gets passed to my new wrapped function, I should pass it along to the old function. And then the wrapped function and the old function will work the same way. Now, I don't have a return here, remember? So there is this tendency to say that we should just return whatever the function returns, which seems totally legit, except this won't work. So let me show you why this won't work. So if I hit go, I had no printout about the timing, right? See that? Let me try that again without all this garbage here. Okay, see how it didn't print anything out about timing? Now, the reason it didn't print anything out about timing is that the wrapper, right, starts the time and then calls the function and then returns what it gets out of the function. That means that only these 2 lines are executed. Everything else down here is unreachable code. So my end time never gets recorded, and then my print line never happens because I already returned what the function gave me. So remember, there's this kind of bizarro trick, which is where you say something like value is the function, right? And then, whoops, sorry. And then after we've printed this out, we should return the value. And I think formatting wise, that looks a little better. Let's see what the linter says. Linter's whining about blank line contains white space. You don't whine about that still? No. Okay, good. All right. So, thoughts, concerns, deals? All right. So this is just doing my test function. Now, I had that Fibonacci thing going, so let me see if I can get that in here. So from the file was called Fibonacci, and the function was called Fibonacci, pretty sure. Okay, so let me then add my wrapper. So I'm going to re-alias Fibonacci with the with timer result from Fibonacci, right? I'm going to comment out my test function line, and I'm going to call my Fibonacci function on, say, 9. So this should give me the 9th Fibonacci number, which is like 34? Whoa. Where's my timer? What is this doing? Okay, so it's whining about that, which is fine. What's this? Expected 2 lines after function definition. Okay, sure. Let me open the Fibonacci file and see what's going on there. Fibonacci. Okay, so one, it's whining about this line. It says that's too long. Whatever. Two. Let's see. So I am from Fibonacci, import Fibonacci. So that should import the definition Fibonacci from here. I'm not sure. It seems like these lines are getting executed, which is annoying me. So let me try this. Why are you still doing that? Fibonacci function with timer expected two blank line. Oh, it's whining with the line previous. That's fine. Okay, so I took a little break from fiddling with this because I was having this problem, right? Where it's running it's calculating a whole bunch of Fibonacci numbers. I don't know why it's doing that, so I spent a minute researching, and here's what I came up with. The first thing I did was I couldn't find a very convenient example because I kind of didn't know what word to look for, so I made some test files. So here's a test1 file that just has a function in it and a print line. Here's a test2 file that just imports that example function and then runs it. And the linter's whining at me there, and the linter's whining at me here. But if I run this, I see that it prints test1 file, right? So that's the print line out of this guy. Okay, so then I realized what it was doing is it's executing the module when I import it. So that gave me some words to Google. So I Googled them. And here I found this nice Stack Overflow of someone doing this kind of thing, right? And they're saying, okay, when they import something, it errors out because it runs it. And then someone answers, yeah, dude, that's the way Python works. So I discovered a thing. I foolishly didn't occur to me that this was the case. But it should have been. Because, yeah, they're right. This is exactly the way Python works. So if you want to stop this behavior, you need to have this kind of if name equals main nonsense. Or when you're trying to import a function, right, you need to make sure that that's the only thing in there. So for my purposes, I'm just going to comment these out, my test case, because I didn't really need that. Another way for me to do this would be to wrap this in an if name equals main statement. And that way, if it gets imported, it doesn't run, but if I run it by itself, it does. Yeah, in fact, let me do that instead, because that's maybe cleaner. Okay, so if I wanted to wrap this in a don't execute me unless I'm the thing actually being executed, do if name is name. Okay, and now if we run this, we'll see our printing of all these numbers. But then if I go back to the thing I was actually trying to accomplish, right, my timer decorator, and I hit run, I figure out that Fibonacci took 0 seconds to execute, and that was running with Fibonacci of 9. Okay, now that problem solved. Let me go back to talking about my timer quick. I'm not super happy with this statement here because it's just telling me which function, right? Telling me that Fibonacci took 0 seconds to execute is not super useful because Fibonacci varies, right? If I tell it to calculate Fibonacci of 100, it's going to take a really long time. Maybe if I tell it to calculate Fibonacci of 20 or 30. That one takes a second, half a second. Okay, so let me calculate Fibonacci of 40 here. Okay, so now I get some wait time, right? While it's thinking about what it's done. Please note these go up really fast, right? That's not great. We can do better. At any rate, this is now taking more time, and once it finishes, I need to pick a number more in the sweet spot. Let's see, I think 34 is one of the ones that takes a second, but not too long. Okay, so there it took 2.5 seconds to execute, and if I say 35, it's going to take like 8 or 10 seconds to execute. Oh, 4 seconds. Okay, so great. I have my timer working. Now, I would really like to, again, import this into another function, right? So which things do I actually need to have for my kind of library, right? So I'm going to do a file save as, and I'm going to put in here so I'm going to make a decorators library. So I'm going to call it useful decorators for myself, right? And now I want to avoid this business that I was just having a problem with this name equals main nonsense. So I'm going to take out anything that's just testing. So I don't need any of this garbage, and I don't need the Fibonacci import, and I don't need the sleep portion of this, right? But I do need the time portion. Okay, so this is now my little decorator library that's ready for me to use. Okay, so let me just fix any linter problems so that it doesn't throw errors when I import things. So I have an extra thing there. And the other problem it's pitching is that Fibonacci.py has a too long line in it, so I'm just going to let that one be. But now I have my decorator library, and I just need to remember to change my header here. So I'm going to call this useful decorators, and my last revision was here. This adds a timer to a function in seconds. And let me just double check that it preserves arguments, coarguments, and return values. Okay, cool. So I might add that note here. So if I'm adding that note, I'd want to do something like okay, cool. And I might, for my own kind of brain, add something like last revision 7, 17, 20, 20. Right, and that's just for me. That's really also kept in the file, but I'm going to keep it in the doc string because if I use this a bunch, I might be interested in when I got better. Right. Okay, so that should do it for a timer decorator. And I now have a timer decorator that I can use on Fibonacci things. So that's a plus.